That her son, who's sitting next to me now, 52-year-old Tomas Zavalidroga, had reported her missing, and that she had said he actually left her in the woods. And so that case is currently is underway right now.
Currently in the midst of trial, or trial is upcoming?
Apparently there's been an order for trial, and that's one of the issues right now.
First of all, before we go forward, does your attorney know that you are here? Is he approve of this?
There was a public defender who was assisting in a limited capacity. That attorney has been discharged, and part of the reason for that was lack of notification of plans to proceed to trial on this issue.
All right.
And
so do you not have an attorney?
At this point, I'm self-represented.
And dismissed by who? By you, right?
Right.
Right. Okay.
Okay.
Yeah, there was a notice. Yeah, the notice of formal notice of that. But this attorney actually was only retained as a public defender out of Madison County.
Okay.
And that public defender was only retained for the limited purposes of filing a couple of motions. And he exceeded his authority in negotiating without my knowledge with the judge in the action to proceed to trial. And it's far too premature at this point to even consider that. There's still a lot of disclosure that wasn't made. There are a number of hearings. So
you fired your attorney, and for those reasons, and we don't have to get into all of that, but
right.
How are you going to set the record straight? It has been believed, and we're all innocent until proven guilty. Mm-hmm. It has been believed that you were responsible for taking, and I think your mother said that you had taken her into the woods and left her there. Is that true? Is that?
Well, the evidence in this case there really wasn't the opportunity to examine fully the evidence in this case. A lot of it's hearsay.
But did you bring her to the woods?
No. As far as the location where she was found, it was about a quarter mile from any of the locations where she would have been with me in the car. And that would have been July 18th. That was the last I saw of my mother. It's been 1 year at this point.
Yeah. So did you take her somewhere and drop her off?
We went to Oneida to pick a car up. She was waiting in the car at the Klisch residence, which is across from Nye Automotive.
Okay. Yeah.
And that was the last. That was the last I have seen my mother now in 1 year.
So you're saying that she got out of the car. Where were you when she was in the car? Were you inside the residence?
At one point, but we had left for a short time to pick up an automobile. She was waiting in that driveway. So there was a specific point when I last saw her in the car leaving with Mr. Klisch. We had a car trailer attached to his truck. We had passed by the car.
You were leaving with Mr. Klisch.
Right.
Okay.
Right. My mother waited in the.
So you leave, and then you feel that she must have gotten out of the car. That's your belief?
No. For a couple of reasons. Police. After she was reported missing, it was over a day later. Police, for whatever reason, did not search immediately, but they did come about a day later with bloodhounds. 2 state troopers who were supposedly experienced bloodhound handlers. They searched the area where in fact, the car itself, which I was then driving.
Yeah.
My mother had been reported missing. But those state police dog handlers went right through the Klisch compound, right where my mother was left, and they also went through all of the woods, even the area where she was later found, supposedly found, and they did not pick any scent up.
Why would she say? Because the reports have said that she says you took her and dropped her off. Why would your mom say that about you?
Well, we don't know her condition at that time. She may have been drugged There's a possibility, well, they even said she was blue in color. And again, this is all alleged, because unless there's somebody, an impartial, an impartial person who could corroborate what, that these statements are actually true. I don't know, I've never spoken to anybody who actually saw my mother in person. I still have not spoken to anybody. So we're just assuming that these statements are true. But what I can only imagine that she was compromised in some way, may have been drugged. She may have been severely hypothermic at that point, and the police apparently were getting her to repeat what they wanted her to repeat. So she was compromised, and...
Okay, these are your allegations, though.
Right.
Yeah, this is what you're alleging. Who drugged, etc.?
Without any evidence firsthand, I am just assuming that that she was compromised in some way. Police have even said that they repeatedly asked her, as in a leading fashion, to repeat what they wanted her to repeat. So that's where this whole notion that she's saying something like Thomas took me to the woods. It was a leading statement by police. And also, this whole situation is really a manufactured manufactured case by police. There were no witnesses.
Why would they want to do this to you?
We had a pending lawsuit, and there was a series of lawsuits that involved a lot of county and local officials, and also police itself. One case was suing the Oneida County Sheriff's Department. So there was,
about what?
Prior harassment. In fact, this very situation had occurred in 2011 with my mother being held against her will for 4 days. We never could have imagined it would have been this bad now. She's now been held, this is a year now. And
allegedly by who in this previous case?
Really the same entities. It was the Social Services Department. We believe in conjunction with the Oneida County Sheriff's Department and the local hospital. We're all involved in that.
Okay, Andrew with a question.
So Tom, what's your relationship with your mom like now? Do you have contact with her? Have you been speaking with her?
No, that's the troubling thing. In fact, it's not only that I have not seen her for a year now. There's been, and this is the police and social service who are orchestrating this. They have completely cut me off from my mother, and beyond that, I have not spoken to anybody who has seen my mother. It's extremely troubling.
What would you say to people who say, "Look, you're just kind of making this up"? They're saying that you have manufactured this story in order to clear your own name. I mean, what do you say to those people? You're really the one that you really did take her into the woods, but you're telling this story.
Well, there's no motivation in this case, for any of these police accusations. There was plenty of evidence in our various cases without needing to somehow manufacture an incident. These cases were under. One of the cases was under appeal, and at that point there would have been really no logical reason for anybody to have done this on our side.
What about the argument or the fact that your relationship with your mom that was rough on that day, leading up on that day?
That's completely untrue.
Not true.
No, my relationship with my mother was extremely close, and we always had it was a very amicable relationship, always in agreement on everything. We always discussed everything.
Did you guys live together?
We were living together, yes.
Let me ask
I was taking care of anything she needed and so forth.
Let me just go back to one thing you just said. You referred to a case and that was on appeal. You had your side had won the case? Is that what you're saying?
No, it had to do with a number of incidents of harassment, one of which was the 2011 detainment of my mother at a local hospital against her will for 4 days. Subsequent to that, there were a number of cases of harassment by the Oneida County Sheriff's Department, some other police organizations. And
about what, they were coming to the house?
Yeah, well, just prior to the July incident, you know, where she went missing, we had a couple of raids by state police. Her house had been condemned.
The house that you both were living in?
No, it was her house alone. We have a separate camp, but her main house was condemned under you know, suspicious circumstances. We believe it was just solely a result of harassment, and that all of these incidents preceded the final act, which was her disappearance.
We're talking to Tomas Zavalidroga, and this is the story that you recall from a while back, where the woman was missing and then was found in the woods, and police are saying that she has put the finger on you as to the person.
Yeah, you know, that's even completely false, because part of the problem here is that there are no witnesses, direct witnesses in the case. It's all based on some kind of hearsay.
What about the guy you were in the car with? What does he say today?
Mr. Klisch?
Yeah.
Well, he was not in the area at the time she would have been missing. We were 2 miles away in Oneida.
But wasn't he in the car when you left your mom in the car there at the residence?
Right. Yeah, we had pulled up, parked the car, but the way the car was parked, this was a van. The windows were not.
He wouldn't have seen her.
Right.
You're saying.
Right.
So he's saying to police, I didn't see. I can't affirm your story because I didn't see her in the van.
Right.
And you're saying he wouldn't have seen her in the van.
Right. And in fact, I had been to the Klisch's, in fact, seen Mr. Klisch a number of times. He had done small jobs, machine jobs. And he would not have seen my mother. She was there each and every time, and it was probably 3 or 4 times prior to this.
Yeah.
And in each of those times, he would not have seen her as well.
So you do have the only witness. You're saying there's only one witness, and that witness is your mom.
Well, I wouldn't even call her a witness. Without knowing, we're trying to get medical information.
She was the only person that could know, other than you, what happened.
Not necessarily. If she were drugged, if she were extremely hypothermic, it's questionable what she could have known at the time, or even now remember at this point. But I will say we had been through multiple video cameras, a lot of fast food places, and just prior to this and during the search, there were at least 10 video cameras in various businesses and so forth that would have captured all of our movements.
But they would have, and the video cameras would have seen your mom in the van?
Yes, but at some point she would have been captured.
But the other witness, you say, couldn't have seen your mom in the van?
Well, we were in the town of Oneida, at the mall area, just prior to going to the Klisch's.
Okay.
And we had passed through all sorts of video cameras. And this is really the troubling thing, is that police did not, as far as I know, did not try to obtain any of those video footages. I personally did, went through every single business that we had passed by, and not only did the police not try to obtain these footages, but they thwarted my efforts in doing that. So
you understand that
troubling.
As you're now, are you choosing to represent yourself?
Yes.
Period.
Well, no. I am definitely attempting now to find an attorney of record of my own choice for this action. But until that time, I would be representing myself.
Can you afford to? And you realize representing yourself is because there's, as far as the authorities are concerned, they have one witness, your mom, who says you took her there and dropped her off.
Yeah, actually, you know,
so it's going to be a hard case for you to prove on your own.
Not really. You see, another aspect of this case is that there's not really the sufficiency of her statement in this action. That what she said does not really it doesn't support the charges against me.
But you're going to have to prove that, is what I'm saying.
No, not really. Actually, this should have been this case actually should have been disposed of, you know, in a pretrial action, and that's a little troubling. How the case would actually now proceed to trial when it's not really a sufficient charge on its face.
Kristine has a question.
Just about the initial, when your mom was reported missing.
Right.
How did you go about that? Because I remember that was a question right out of the gate, the manner in which you reported your mother missing.
It would have been recorded in the 911 tapes or the Oneida account. But
I want to know from you, when you reported her missing,
right.
And you're saying that she was eventually found less than a quarter of a mile from where
right.
you were, yet you and your friend were 2 miles away.
Well, I mean, initially we were 2 miles away. We don't know where my mother would have been between July 18th and she was found, I believe it was the 21st. That's the question. Where was she during that period of time?
Yeah.
But it was right off the bat, I was there when she was found. I had raced behind an emergency vehicle, which I thought may have been involved with the ongoing search the last day.
But what was your call to 911 like when you called them specifically?
That I was worried my mother was missing. I knew there was a possibility of you know, she was an at-risk person because we had been getting threats. So that was part of it. So when I called, I wasn't sure if it was something where she could have stumbled down a hillside or if she could have been abducted. It could have been either one.
WIBX Utica Rome, it's 9 o'clock, we're going to go over just a little bit here. Tomas Zavalidroga has made his way in studio with the intention to set the record straight here. He has been charged with the official charges.
Yeah, that's what I want to ask.
Well,
misdemeanors, aren't they?
Yeah, they're misdemeanor charges, reckless endangerment, and they're claiming when I called in that she was missing, that I supposedly knew where she was, and the ensuing charge was false reporting.
Yeah, so it's falsely reporting an incident and reckless endangerment.
Right.
If they wanted to frame you or set you up for something,
right,
wouldn't they go a little, you know, go big or go home type of a thing?
Yeah, this to me is a little odd, that they could have done it a little better. They're stepping out here to some extent with all the video coverage, which I'm still in the process of obtaining that. But it essentially, we were passing through numerous video cameras during our entire stay.
You don't know that you believe those tapes exist.
Well, I know for a fact one of them does, which I've only been able. A lot of the businesses are not forthcoming with releasing that. They will need subpoenas for them to release it.
Yeah.
I was able to get a firm bead on one of these footages. I have a firm time. That time completely. In fact, the business owner reviewed the tape, would not release it to me without a subpoena, but did confirm the time that I was in a store with my mother waiting outside.
Where was that? What store was that?
Well, I don't want to be specific on evidence, but it was in the vicinity of where I was with Mr. Klisch picking up the cards.
Right.
It's in the mall area of Oneida.
Right. Andrew has a question.
So Tom, do you say that you feel your mom may have been abducted or ended up in the woods some other way? How do you think she ended up missing? At what point from when you were with her till when she went missing, could this have happened?
Well, the time frame was very limited. So when Mr. Klisch and I had left his compound with my mother waiting in the car.
I'm sorry. The compound. This is his house?
Yeah, his house.
How big is this?
Well, he has a large lot with a couple of outbuildings, and there's just there's not much else around his house.
Okay,
other
I'm
than
sorry.
This, parking
I'm sorry
lot.
to cut you off.
Yeah. So there's a parking lot, and Nye Automotive, as I say, is across the street. But there's extensive woods in back of Mr. Klisch's house, and it's in back of all of the houses on the one side of that main route where Nye Automotive is located. But it's about one square mile, perhaps, of woods, very thick woods.
So does your mom have a condition? Does she had a diagnosed condition of like Alzheimer's or dementia or something like that, where she would be prone to wander?
No. In fact, you know, another very important aspect of this case is that they were trying the same, I would say, the same tactics in harassing her for some time prior to her going missing. And in, I would say it would have been about 6 months before July of 2014 when she was missing. The social services had actually sent a letter to her stating that they had reviewed her case. They had actually put her under investigation several times, and the last determination was that she was competent to handle her own affairs.
Right.
And that was 6 months before she went, or even less, maybe 5 months or 6 months before she went missing. That's crucial to this case, because they already made a determination that she was competent.
And I have a couple final questions. First of all, what would you haven't seen your mom since that day?
Right. I'm working every day for the last year to get her released.
Okay.
I believe that she's being illegally held at this point, unethically, and everything else.
Home or something like that is what you think?
I assume, again, I have very limited firsthand knowledge or evidence on this, but it's assumed that she's at a nursing home in Utica.
And was there, you know, one would say, presume maybe there's a life insurance policy, maybe there's, that would give you motive to make your mom disappear.
Yeah, there's no motives at all in the case. You know, this has already been examined, and I have already gone through, did speak with police once about this, you know, that there is no motive in the action.
Well, that's what you're saying, though, but they may come back and say that you had a motive. Do you know of an insurance policy?
Nobody has brought that. No, there's no insurance policy, no financial motives, at least on my part.
Yeah.
On others.
But does your mom have, does she have money tucked away?
No, there's nothing, there's really no great financial motivation other than that there is property. You know, she did have a couple of valuable parcels of property, but I already had power of attorney over her, you know, for like the last 10 years.
So you could have done whatever you wanted.
Yeah, and everything I did was, you know, in negotiation or in consultation with my mother.
Okay.
We always had attorneys advising us.
So what? You have not seen your mom since this incident.
Since this incident, yeah.
If she were listening right now, what would you want to say to her? And I mean, I think that she might be listening to the radio right now.
Yeah, that you know, I'm trying to get you out, and you know, we had spoken of this very situation as a potentiality. You know, it appears you know, our worst fears have happened now, but I'm coming to try to release you at some point, or get you released. Working every day, and you know, we'll be together soon.
You have the family, I think siblings, right? That in court fought and won. You've lost that power of attorney, etc. Do you talk to those siblings?
No, there are some strange family members, and this goes back several years before the July 2014 incident with her going missing. That's still under investigation.
There's your brothers, though, right?
Yeah, it includes brothers.
And what do you say to them, though, that because they seem to, it seems to me that their belief is, they believe what police are saying, that you did this, and that keeping you from your mother is the best thing for your mom. What do you say to your family?
Well, you know, these estranged family members who also, you know, also included within this group would have been a spouse of one of the brothers who made very incriminating statements. This is a individual who's estranged from the family, but would have had a significant financial motivation in doing orchestrating exactly what has happened here. Cutting me off from my mother, and then attempting to gain control over my mother through these county entities.
Right.
So there's a significant financial motivation, not on my part, but on other
And what is that significant financial motivation for them?
That they could, and they have already attempted to do it, gain control over all of my mother's assets and property.
And what could they get out of that? I mean,
well, it's difficult to say. You know, the property is believed to be worth a sizable amount of money.
how much money do you think?
I can't speculate on
This is
that.
the
But
condemned
enough.
home?
We're talking
The
like-
condemned home?
Right, the condemned home, which includes a couple hundred acres, and it certainly would be enough for somebody with, you know, who's improperly motivated, who's also motivated simply by, you know, with financial concerns, that they would have possibly orchestrated this.
So one would say, though, that with you in control, with power of attorney, you already have everything in your name, basically.
Right.
If your mother were to disappear, you would get all that.
No. In fact, we had attorneys transfer property to me. It was prior to her going missing. So there was the majority of the property was already transferred, and several of the parcels were just left in her name, simply because it was not part of the plan. So if there was a financial motivation on my part, I would have tried to obtain those parcels as well.
And what was the plan?
I would be able to facilitate, as owner of the property, management of it. You know, we had discussed possible sale of the property, rentals. We also had problems with the police not enforcing property rights, and they were justifying doing that by saying that my mother was the owner of the property and would have had to sign papers, which was completely false, because I did have power of attorney over that property, but just to facilitate the management of it.
Tom, what did you do for a living? Or what do you do for a living?
Well, right now it's been pretty tough. They seized all of
Prior
our...
to now?
Yeah, well, for the last year, they had, as of the time she went missing, the time I was arrested, which I believe was around July 21st of 2014, they seized all of our assets.
Okay,
We had
prior to your mom, I don't mean to cut you off, but
Right.
prior to your mom going missing, what did you do for a living?
Well, I managed the property, which is was like a tree farm, part-time logging, scrapping, you know, that type of thing.
And that property still remained, though, in your mom's name.
Which property?
Well, a lot of these properties you're talking about, that
Yeah,
your
well,
sibling is
there's like one large property. It's made up of 4 different parcels. 2 of the parcels remain in her name. 2 parcels are in my name.
Got it. Okay. Anything else you want to leave everybody with that you want people to know about?
Yeah, you know that this is a situation which I would have had difficulty conceiving could have happened in the United States. I've heard of things like this happening in third world countries, but not in the United States. And even during the search for her, I spoke at length about that to a reporter. That you know, the whole scenario, the way it was being set up, looked like something more out of Mexico. You know, where there's politically motivated disappearances, and you know, those were my fears. And I never would have conceived that even having gone through the court systems, right now we have a parallel case in the federal court systems on this whole situation, and that the courts wouldn't have rectified this on short order within a matter of a couple of weeks or months.
Can I just ask one final
Yes.
question? I want to make sure we're on the same page. So you think these entities, the county entities, followed you to your friend or your neighbor's compound, saw you leave, went to the van, kidnapped your mother, took her away, held her hostage for a few days, then placed her in the woods, and then
Pinned it on you.
That's a very distinct possibility. But I will say I have no firm evidence. The way I am proceeding with this action, unless I have first-hand knowledge of something, it's difficult for me to actually state that as a belief. That is a possibility, though. A distinct possibility.
Okay.
That scenario was exactly what played out.
And what is the possibility that you were the one that dropped her off in the woods?
Zero.
Zero.
Zero. And it's actually, that is sustainable now in the evidence, and the court refused to, through evidentiary hearings or any other mechanism, refused to recognize that.
Right.
That there's zero possibility that the police story on this whole thing could be true.
Okay.
You had said that you and your mother discussed the potentiality, I think was your word, of this happening.
Right.
Yet you say you could never have imagined this happening in anywhere but a third world country. What did you mean when you said you had discussed the possibility that this could happen? Did you discuss the possibility that your mother could disappear and that they would have to find her and then pin it on you?
No, not to that extent. That she could be taken and held, just as she was in 2011 by county entities. And in fact, that is the last thing I told her. One of the last things prior, or on the way to the Klisch compound that day, we actually had spoken about stopping at the state police barracks in Oneida with some papers that she would have had to drop off, and it had to do with enforcing trespassing on the property. And I told her she would have to go in alone, and if they held her for whatever reason, like what occurred in 2011, to not say anything and to ask for an attorney.
Got it.
And my impression at that time was that if that were to have occurred, it would be a matter of a couple days to get her out. Never would have conceived a year could possibly have gone by.
If you can't afford to hire an attorney, you're going to represent yourself?
If need be, would have to do that.
All right.
Yeah.
All right, Tomas Zavalidroga, we appreciate your time.
Okay, appreciate you.
And
being here.
We wish you the best of luck in this situation.
Thank you.
All right. That's it for us. We're back here tomorrow morning, and we'll join Glenn Beck already in progress. Take a break here, and come right back with Glenn Beck on WIBX.
Thank you very much for coming in. And
Can you go to monitor? Monitor.
over there on monitor.
Oh, monitor.
Humility.
Oh, so you.
Yeah, I don't think we missed a break. Thanks for coming in.
Okay, well, yeah, I mean, some of these other so-called mainstream stations have really been going to town, actually gone to the point of disseminating misinformation, stuff that's blatantly incorrect on this. So I felt I really had no choice but to set the record straight.
I thought it was interesting. I mean, if my mom were missing or I hadn't talked to her for so long, I think the first thing I would have said to her was, I love you, Mom. Like, it seems to me that you're devoid of emotion, you know?
Well, I mean, my relationship, we're not like, what would you call it, touchy-feely, huggy, you know, and there's like nobody in my family, even with my father. We're Eastern Europeans, for one thing, you know, so it might be a little different, very strong bonds, but you know, when I, through college or anything, would very seldom like hug. We just generally just don't hug and so forth. Yeah, I deeply love my mom every single day. This is more of like I'm trying, at this point, it's like an administrative thing. We're trying to do things in court to get her out. It happened before, so this is basically, it's a much drawn out version of what occurred in 2011.
And is there an order of protection?
Yeah, that's
in place?
That's and it's a police order of protection. It has nobody. My mom is not the one who did this. It's the police, and that in and of itself is a whole issue. In that.
Have you two been in court together at the same time, though?
No, they want to make sure that my mother cannot see me, because they, well, there's a couple of scenarios here of what they're doing. One is to completely cut us off so that they could tell her, you know, like every day, go into her room and say, you know, your son took you and abused you. You didn't know that? And then without me being there to say anything to her, they could do that over a period, it's a year now, and get her to believe anything. So that they could literally, now we don't know if they're going to drag her into court and try to get her to say something, but that is the intent, that they just simply cut us off, and they could feed any lies they want, any scenario, and get her to believe it. And in fact, this is a lot of times, I saw a case on TV, kidnapping in Mexico, and this is how the kidnappers do it. There's like various techniques they use. If they don't get their money right away, they start playing games. One is that they'll tell the person being held captive, all kinds of lies, like, your family is saying you're a dirtbag, your family hates you. They'll try that for a little while, and it's sort of like the same kind of thing. It's a separation, and then trying to feed anything at all they can to her while she's being, cloistered in that situation. But
you said that mentally there's nothing wrong with her, but you told police that she was a person at risk.
Yeah, at risk of possible harm. Now, the two brothers, we had to call police. They're highly unstable individuals. One of them has a background some years ago, a federal conviction for threatening people, and they were both of them were getting out of hand in terms of. What are
their names? I'm sorry.
John and Victor.
And same last name.
Yeah, yeah. And
so which one is the one who has the felony conviction?
That's John, and Victor has mental problems, and he's known to be violent, and they reached a point where they were out of control. And we had to call police on both of them. John was arrested, in fact, it was like a year prior to my mother going missing. And we know that he was in communication with the social services department to try, it's like a revenge tactic. That he was instrumental in getting her house condemned, and he was just full of revenge for her having made a complaint against him a year prior.
Is it possible that John or Victor could have followed you that day and took your mother somewhere?
No. Well, if it is, it would have been in conjunction with police. Police would have been the only ones who had the capability of, like 24-hour-a-day surveillance over us. And we did allege that in the prior actions, that we were being followed.
And her name is on those lawsuits as well, or is it
yes?
Just
no, her. Yeah, we were both always doing things jointly. Yeah, always doing things jointly. But the only ones who would have had prior knowledge would have been the Clishes, and they are really one of the only party that I could say in this whole thing who acted highly suspicious. Or not suspicious, well, yeah, suspicious. It was just completely odd. Off the wall. For instance, John Klisch, right at the time my mother went missing, I said, hey, my mother was in the car, she's missing. I was like kind of frantic. He wouldn't help me search the woods. I said, well, yeah, let's search the woods. He says, well, yeah, you could go ahead if you want. And I'm thinking, what's going on? And that was like completely off the wall. And then his wife too was like appears to be somewhat unstable. She ordered me out of her house. I'm speaking about the same tone I am now, and she, would say, like, don't shout at me, don't shout at me, get out of my house, get out of my house. And I was thinking, what's going on? So that was very peculiar. But the Clishes and the police would have been the only people who could have possibly had any advanced knowledge. Oh, also it would have been people we bought the car from would have known we would have been in Oneida that day.
What would the advantage have been for them to do this to you?
You were talking police?
Yeah, or the Clishes.
Well, I don't know. I wouldn't want to. Like I said, I don't want to speculate. The way I want to proceed with this case is facts, cut and dried facts. I could speculate all day long, but the question is like, what would my brothers have to gain? Yeah, there's a possible financial motivation, that type of thing. It's all speculation, but that was extremely troubling to me. Very odd, and also the statements they made were demonstrably false. He made a statement, as Mr. Klisch, to the newspaper about the time when I was with him trying to get, with the trailer and the car and everything. And he said, well, it probably was 1 or 1:30. And I have a exact time from somebody with a video surveillance that we had not even left the Oneida Mall area to go to his house. It was 1:23 was the exact time. And I'm on videotape. My mother's waiting out in the car, and that's 1:23. So his times would have been all off, and he got those times from the police.
Got it.
So the police were trying to construct something here that would work, so to speak.
And you think that the reason the police are doing this was the lawsuits that you had filed with them?
Absolutely. They even said that when I was arrested. One of them, this is the character. You see, you have to keep in mind here. This whole thing is a manufacture and creation of one policeman who's trying to create a reality, and that's this this Oneida investigator who actually made the arrest. He told me that he knew people in the town of Camden that this would have been like police officers that we were suing at the time. He also, in a malicious way, right when he was slapping the cuffs on and all that night, said something to the effect that all of your lawsuits are over. And it was pretty clear that he was happy about that. And we had filed the appeal in this big action. It would have gone to the federal courts of appeal. It was 24 hours prior to my mother going missing. Okay. We were in Utica, and we filed that appeal with the clerk. So there was a lot of motivation. It's a multi-million-dollar lawsuit, and it did have the effect of derailing the lawsuit.
Got it.
Ultimately.
Well, I hope you've been able to vent and.